At my birthday party, my dad brought home a girl from the orphanage, a girl named Song Yenxiao, who happened to look a little like him. She said softly, "Sister, I'm sorry, I didn't come to break your family apart. I just wanted to have a home." My parents felt sorry for her. My brother protected her no matter what, even if it meant turning against me and driving me to the edge. That life ended miserably for me on the streets. In this life I didn't hesitate. I found a girl who looked a bit like my mother. She said the same thing. She just wanted to have a family. Maybe it was fate. My father came in with Song Yenxia. That day his eyes showed surprise. He probably didn't expect the Song family, which used to be lively, to now be silent and cold. My father looked at me suspiciously and asked, "Jiang Wei, aren't you hosting your birthday dinner today?" I kept playing on my phone, glanced at the two people standing by the door and said, "I don't feel like celebrating this year." My father was thick-skinned. He quickly adjusted his tone and led Song Yenxia over. He said, "Come on, meet everyone. This is the girl I just adopted. Her name is Song Yenxia. This is your sister Jiang Wei and your brother Song Zhou." The man next to me looked up at her. His eyes lit up. He nudged my shoulder. I gave him a small silent smile. At this point he was still the kind of brother who cared about his real sister. Unfortunately later he would turn against me for her, ruin me, and take my life, but this time I have been reborn. I came back to 5 days before that birthday. In my memory, at that birthday party, my father introduced Song Yenxia as his newly adopted daughter right in front of everyone. Somehow I lost control and began yelling and striking her in public. She fell to the floor pretending to be weak and said, "Sister, I'm sorry, I didn't come to take your family. I just wanted to have a home." My fiancé at the time stood by her side shouting at me, forcing me to apologize. He said, "She just wants a home, can't you be generous?" My mother, who was always cold to me, sided with them. She said, "Wei Wei, is this how I raised you? You've really disappointed me." My foolish brother looked at Song Yenxia's tearful face and lost all reason that night. Because of all of them, my reputation hit rock bottom. After that event, after many more things, my grandfather, who had always supported me, finally gave up on me. Old friends turned their backs to stand beside her. My parents protected her. My fiancé broke off our engagement for her. My brother handed me over to danger. And in the end I lost my life. When I woke again, I was back 5 days before the birthday. Living again, I finally realized how foolish I was before. All that so-called love was nothing but a curse wrapped in affection. Alright, here's the continuation, translated in the same natural American English style with no punctuation, and keeping the original pacing and paragraph breaks. This time I decided to change everything. I would no longer live like a fool, letting others use my kindness to destroy me. I would take back everything that was mine and make them pay for what they had done. When I heard my father's footsteps downstairs, I put down my phone and slowly walked out of the room. My father was talking to Song Yenxia in a gentle voice, telling her not to be nervous, that our family was kind and would treat her well. I stood at the top of the stairs watching them from above. Her face looked soft and innocent, her eyes full of fake sincerity. She looked up at my father as if he was her only light. I remembered the scene clearly. In my last life, this was the moment everything started to fall apart. So this time I walked down the stairs, smiled politely, and said, "Dad, since you already decided to adopt her, then make sure she knows the rules of our house right from the beginning. We don't tolerate people who pretend to be innocent and cause trouble." My father froze for a second, obviously not expecting me to talk like that, but he quickly covered it with a forced smile and said, "Wei Wei, don't talk nonsense. Yenxia is a good girl. She just needs some time to adjust." I turned my gaze to her. She lowered her head, pretending to be shy, and said softly, "Sister, don't be angry. I will do my best to be good to you." I laughed quietly and said, "Then I hope you keep your word. I don't like hypocrites." I could see the faint panic in her eyes. Maybe she didn't expect the old timid Jiang Wei to talk this way. That night during dinner, the air was heavy. My mother sat at the table without saying a word. My father kept trying to make conversation, and Song Yenxia acted polite, as if she was already part of the family. I didn't bother playing along. I ate slowly, occasionally glancing at them from time to time. I could feel my brother watching her too, and that familiar irritation rose in my chest, but I kept it down this time. I wouldn't let her twist everything against me. After dinner I went back to my room, opened my computer, and started looking through old files and emails. I knew that in a few days the family company would sign an important contract. The deal was the key to everything in my last life. Because of her manipulation, the project was ruined, and I was blamed for it, leading to my downfall. But not this time. I had already decided I would strike first. The moon outside was bright and cold. I looked at my reflection in the window and smiled to myself. This time I would no longer be the victim. Sure. Here's the next part, translated in the same American English storytelling style with no punctuation, while keeping your structure, tone, and pacing intact. The next morning I woke up early and went downstairs. The smell of breakfast filled the air. My father had already left for work. My mother was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper, and Song Yenxia was in the kitchen helping the maid. She looked up and smiled when she saw me and said, "Sister, good morning." I smiled back and said good morning, but inside I felt nothing but coldness. After breakfast I went straight to the company. I was still a trainee there, but I already knew how the system worked. Everyone greeted me politely, though I could hear the whispers behind my back saying that I was only there because of my family name. I didn't care. I had no time to deal with small people today. My goal was clear. I needed to make sure the upcoming contract stayed under my control. I went into the conference room and checked all the files, the project data, the investors, the signatures, everything looked perfect. But I also knew that in my last life someone tampered with these documents, changing a few numbers to create losses that were later blamed on me, and that someone was Song Nianxia. She used my brother's trust to access the files and destroyed everything. This time I had already encrypted the documents and changed the security codes, only I could open them. I even set up an alert system to notify me the moment anyone tried to access them without permission. Just thinking about her frustrated expression when she failed made me want to laugh. At noon my brother called asking if I wanted to have lunch together. I hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. He had always been my weakness. Even after all that happened, I couldn't completely hate him. When I arrived at the restaurant, he was already there. He smiled, and said, "You look different lately, more confident." I smiled, and replied, "Maybe I just grew up." He laughed, and said, "That's good, you used to care too much about others." We talked for a while, and for a brief moment I almost forgot everything. Then he suddenly said, "By the way, Nianxia told me she wants to apply for an internship at our company. Can you help her?" I froze for a second, but quickly smiled. "Sure, if she can pass the test, I'll help her." I could feel the old irritation rising inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm this time. I wouldn't push him away. I would make her reveal her true face herself. After lunch I walked out of the restaurant. The sun was shining, but my heart was cold. I looked at the sky and whispered to myself, "This time, everything will end differently." That afternoon I returned to the office, and the atmosphere felt strangely tense. The assistant came in with a nervous expression, saying someone from the personnel department wanted to see me. I nodded, and told her to let them in. Soon the door opened, and Song Nianxia walked in wearing a white blouse and a gentle smile. She looked innocent like she always did, and said, "Sister, long time no see. I came to apply for the internship program." I leaned back in my chair and looked at her carefully. She seemed exactly like before, sweet, polite, harmless, but I knew better. Beneath that gentle surface hid a sharp mind and a heart colder than mine. I said calmly, "If you want to apply, go through the formal process. I don't interfere with recruitment." She blinked and smiled. "Oh, I understand. I just wanted to say hi since we haven't talked in a while." She stood there pretending to be shy, but her eyes were quietly scanning my desk, trying to see what I was working on. I noticed, and deliberately pushed the files aside. Then I stood up, walked around the desk, and said, "Welcome to the company. I hope you'll adapt quickly." When she left the office, the smile on my face slowly faded. I knew she wouldn't give up that easily. She would find another way to get close to me, to get into the system. So that night I went back to the company again. When everyone else had gone home, I checked all the surveillance cameras and system logs. Just as I expected, there had already been a failed attempt to access restricted data at 6 p.m., and the ID used belonged to an intern who hadn't even officially started yet. I stared at the screen, my lips curling into a cold smile. The game had already begun. The next day I went to a meeting as usual, and acted like nothing happened. Song Nianxia was sitting at the back taking notes, quietly pretending to be humble. She greeted everyone sweetly, even brought coffee for the department head. Everyone seemed to like her just like before. They all thought she was the kind girl who could do no wrong. During the meeting she raised a question about one of the data entries, a question so specific only someone who had seen confidential documents could ask. The room went silent, and everyone looked at me. I smiled, and said, "That's a very interesting point, Miss Song, but how do you know about that figure?" She froze for a second, realizing she'd slipped up, then forced a laugh. "Oh, I must have read it wrong, sorry." I smiled again, and moved on as if nothing happened. But deep inside, I knew I had just confirmed it. She had already started moving against me. That night I sat by the window of my apartment, city lights flickering outside. I poured myself a glass of wine, and whispered to the reflection in the glass, "Last time you destroyed everything I had. This time, I'll destroy everything you are." He knocked on my bedroom door not long after I went back inside. His eyes, lingering over my room, showed a mix of envy and longing. He bowed to me full of emotion, and said, "Sister Weiwei, thank you for bringing me back. Thank you for giving me a home. I will help you deal with any trouble that comes your way." I raised an eyebrow and smiled coolly. I thought to myself, this kid from that rough place already knows how to work an audience. He kept fidgeting, then asked nervously, "Do you know about my mother?" I blinked, and said, "How would I know? Everything isn't told to me by you anyway." He breathed a quiet sigh of relief, and rambled on a few polite lines before leaving. I shut the door and watched him go with a small smile playing at my lips. I already knew more than he did. The truth about my mother had been hiding right under everyone's noses, and after I was reborn I had people quietly look into things for me. I started from my mother, and the pieces fell into place faster than I expected. When I tracked down the boy later, I found him in a bar restroom, surrounded and mocked by a group of girls who had gone too far. They were taking pictures and shaming him online. I paid them to leave, then pulled him aside and lifted his chin to look at him closely. At that moment, I finally understood why my mother had spoiled Song Nianxia so much in the past. There was something she had been hiding. The more I dug, the clearer it became. My mother had kept a secret from everyone, even my grandfather. She had another daughter with a man who later went to prison. That girl was Gao Yuan. The resemblance between Gao Yuan and Song Nianxia was not just about looks, but about a shared